So today I want to talk about the work we've been doing, me and my friend Luis Trujillo and our teacher, Rodrigo Medellin, about these amazing bats. So first, right off the bat, let us talk about bats. When you think about bats, you probably imagine something like this. They're a bit scary. They're probably a bit dirty. They carry diseases. They're probably all bloodsuckers. And most people's knowledge about bats stops there. And it is a real shame because most of those things are lies or misunderstandings. And bats are actually amazing creatures. There are more than 1,400 species around the world, and they're obviously not flying mice. They're a completely different thing, and they're very, very diverse. They're very different between them. So, for example, you have things like this tiny, tiny fur ball that you might find in the melting snow in Japan, where these bats make a literal small igloo around themselves so they can survive the winter, to huge flying foxes that have a couple meters wingspan and weigh a couple kilograms, and they're just amazingly large. Some bats just hang out alone in the trees or in the bushes, and they're just alone by themselves, not bothering anyone. While others make these amazing, huge groups of millions of bats that inhabit some caves. And while some of them are prettier, others are a bit weird looking, like this wrinkly-faced bat. However, we love them all the same, and they all carry out important functions within ecosystems, and they all give benefits to humans that we don't even realize. So, for example, by far, most bats eat insects. They're bug eaters. They eat the moths that attack some of our biggest, most important crops, such as corn or cotton or rice, for example. They also eat mosquitoes. Mosquitoes bite us. They are real annoying. They are itchy, and they transmit diseases, and those diseases can kill us. So these bats are helping control the populations of those tiny insects. Some other bats, for example, eat scorpions. This pallid bat, it can take dozens of stings, literal scorpion stings, to the face, and it will just not care. It will continue eating scorpions. So they're really, really cool animals. Many other bats eat fruit. They will pluck a fig from a tree in the rainforest, and then they will carry it around in their mouth, and they will eat it somewhere else. And eventually, they will poop. And then in that poop will be the seeds from the fig. Whenever humans decide to chop down the forest, or there is a fire and some of the forest gets burned down, it's these guys that bring back the seeds that are needed for trees to grow again. So they carry out a very important function in maintaining these forests. Some other bats eat nectar and pollen from flowers. They are basically tiny, furry, nocturnal hummingbirds. They have very long snouts that they use to go into the flowers, and they have even longer tongues, as you can see in that video. They use to slurp up the nectar from the flowers. In the process, they get covered in pollen, and they bring that pollen from that flower to the next, thus completing the reproduction of these plants, pollinating the flowers. There are some really cool bats that have big, big feet that they use to literally scoop out fish from the water and eat them. And yes, there are 3 species of bats that actually eat blood, and they used to be really rare in the forest where they lived, until the Europeans brought cows and donkeys and horses and other cattle into the American continent, and they basically laid out a 24/7 buffet for them. So now they have a lot of food, they reproduce a lot, and now they are a problem in some parts of tropical America. However, this is a problem that we humans created, not the bats. And finally, carnivorous bats. There are about 9 species of bats, of these bats around the world. They're all very different between them, but what they share and they have in common is that they like to eat meat. They eat other small animals such as bats or tiny rodents like mice or birds, etc. And they have developed some very cool adaptations to this. For example, here I have the skull of a coyote to the left and the skull of one of these bats to the right. It's actually enlarged. Here in my hands, I have the actual skull of one of these. They are tiny animals. But I want you to see the huge canines they have, the fangs that they use to kill their prey, and the very sharp molars on the back of their mouth that they use to cut the meat. Think of a butcher's knife. So these animals need these very sharp teeth to eat their prey. And it's interesting that these two animals that are so different, a coyote and a bat, have such similar teeth because they share a diet. They are adapted to these to eating these other animals.